game. And it's hit the center. It's falling fast. It's trouble. It drops in. Here comes Del Valle. We are tied on this payoff pitch. And it's a ground ball over to Cannon. He backhands it. He gets up. It's a low throw. And it gets past Ostado. RailCats win! Sound the horn. The RailCats have walked off the Monarchs for a series victory.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savedich, and we will be getting to the series in a second. But I know I mentioned at the end of the last podcast, but I'm going to mention it beforehand. I'm going to start doing like YouTube shorts and reels of like RailCats quick minute kind of updates. It's just going to be basically try to do it after every game, and it's just going to be like the meat and potatoes of what happened in the game, and have like a couple highlights here and there, but it's gonna be about 60 seconds, under a minute or so that way you kind of get a quick game recap and just kind of keep the flow moving on that one, kind of get an idea of what happened in the game. But anyways, going into yesterday, which is Sunday, the RailCats had Saturday off, going into a series tie with the Kansas City Monarchs. And, you know, after Friday's game, when we look at the schedule, when we look at the RailCats series against the Monarchs, you know, they win game 1, 7-1. Andres Diaz completely shuts down the Monarchs, and he is the pitcher of the week in the American Association, recognized by the American Association, and then I believe by this week in the association for minor league reporting as well. So he got both honors on that portion of it. He in that game, he allowed 1 hit, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. Didn't allow earned run or a run in general. He was absolute dominant, throwing bullets in there. I mean, the game was only 2 hours and 14 minutes. Like, that game flew by just because the way Anders was pitching, and good on him. I'm glad that he got the honor. I was hoping, and he's the first RailCat this year to get that accommodation for pitcher / or a player in general. So good on him. I hope to see more out of him. And then the game on Friday was a very lackluster Friday game. And I know I kind of went over this a little bit in the last podcast that I had. But this one, it was more of like, I guess the May in Review podcast. I was trying to remember which one it was I'm getting sidetracked again. Going into a little bit more detail with the game 2. You know, being at the game, it was just one of those that it was a rough start, as I mentioned before, of Carlos Nabrera, that I knew that if he was going to have a tough game as far as not being able to like hit the strike zone, we were going to have a long day coming. And we did, because he ended up hitting the first batter he saw and then walked a couple people. You know, he gave up 8 hits, 7 runs, 4 earned. I know there was an error, but 4 walks and 3 strikeouts. Just not a very good outing from him. And you know, that's necessarily his worst outing that he's had. You know, he did have a game where he gave up 6 earned runs, but he pitched 5 innings. This was probably his worst start of the year in that aspect of it. And he has potential. It's just trying to get into the strike zone is going to be the issue, which is, you know, most of the issues with most of the pitching staff. But going into Sunday's game, you know, this was a pitching duel throughout. You know, Peyton Long gave up the 2 runs, the 2 solo home runs back to back. That happens. It's going to happen. You know, you give it up, and you know you're going to give those up sometimes, and it just happens. And that's something you don't necessarily see from Peyton. That's not his forte, necessarily giving up the long bombs, but you get that sometimes, and it happens. And the thing to take away from that is the team did come back, and they did rally to walk the game off in a big way. You know, LG Castillo with 2 outs in the 8th inning, being able to drive in Del Valle, who ended up getting on first. And like this is the situation that this could have been one of those games that would have went the other way if a handful of things not went right. It, Castillo hits a single with 2 outs and 2 strikes basically, and then you go to the walk-off portion of it. Marcus Gonzalez gets over to third, and you have a pop out for out number 2, and it's just like, oh, here we go. And then Carlos Rincon it's a full count, 2 outs, and he grounds the ball to third base, and you're like, okay, well, ground the ball to third base. And realistically, the way he's been running, a lot of times we're paying attention, like if he grounds the ball to someone, he's not really running. Like he's one of those, like, if he's gonna make it, he's gonna run, but it's not that consistency. So I'm like, oh, here we go. It's just gonna be one of those situations where you're gonna hit the ball, and I'm thinking in my head, and he's gonna hit the ball to third, and he's gonna half jog to first, and there's gonna be an errant throw, and the first baseman's gonna have time to pick it up and step back on first. And we did have an errant throw, and it slipped right through Tosta, and the RailCats walk it off and win the game. And that's the situation where you kind of want to look back and be like, this is a prime example of why you should always run out every play, no matter how bad it may seem. That other than maybe like a line shot to the third baseman and he catches it, there's nothing you can do on it. But you never know what's going to happen in any sport. So I get it. 99.9% of the time, that's probably going to be an out. But that 0.01% of the time, that's when you got to hustle it out. So it's just I think that's one of those situations where you have to kind of take that one into perspective on that front of it. Not being at both games that they won, it was kind of hard to judge the game itself. And I was able to watch the Thursday game when I got home, and I only really missed a half inning. And yesterday's game on Sunday, I only watched the 10th inning. Realistically, I was at my niece's birthday party and one of my other nieces' t-ball game, so I wasn't able to watch the game. So being messaged that there was more to what it looked like on TV was that in game 1 of the series, you had the lineup change. This is what I've been told, so like I didn't see it for myself, but from what I've been told was that the players were on the fence, right? And they were chanting, they were cheering, they were getting into it. So it was one of those situations where it seemed like everyone was engaged, and they ended up winning the game. And then you get into game 2, and you just have that terrible first inning, and all the energy just sucked out of the building. And especially being on a Friday night, you had it Wizards night, you had some Little League teams there. There was a lot of people there. So like the energy was already kind of there, and then the energy's not there. And then you're already down 10-0, but you start to kind of bring it back. The fans are starting to kind of get into it, but the engagement still fully isn't there. Then going into yesterday's game, you get the 1 run, everyone's feeling up about themselves, feeling good about themselves, and then you give back-to-back home runs, and then everyone just gets deflated. Right, the players just get deflated. They're not engaged anymore, and this is the point where the pitching staff stepped up, and you have Julio Pinto that comes in and he does his job, giving up just 1 walk and 2 strikeouts. Yohan Valdez pitches 1 inning, nothing else to note. He just I think it was the 7th inning. I screwed up the scorebook a little bit. He just 1, 2, 3 inning, no big deal. Josh Smith comes in, and he's been very productive, giving up just the 1 hit. And then Nate Alexander, who finally gets a nice win out of it, pitches 2 innings and has 1 strikeout. So that's a positive to see on the flip side of that. But everyone's deflated, and then LG Castillo ties the game up and basically looks at the dugout and says, let's go. Like, why are we not excited about, like, we got to get into the game, be happy, get into the game. And then you go into the 9th inning, and you end up walking off. And I hope that this gains some kind of momentum for the RailCats. Realistically, that's what I want to see, the momentum kind of build upon this, the team to get engaged. That's going into the situation of last week on Memorial Day when I was at work and Josh Smith come in and Ty Tiedemann come in, and I say, I'm be out the game. I'm gonna see y'all guys out there, and their response is, well, we'll try not to suck. And it wasn't like, we'll try not. It was just like, yeah, we'll try not to suck. Like, you're already discouraged. You're a month in now. You're 21 games in, and that's how you're feeling. That's not a good recipe for success. So like, I hope something changes. I think having Del Valle back in the lineup helps that situation. Right now, yeah, he's batting at 200, but he's just been a force to get on base and be productive. He gets on with an error. Or no, it was a three. Never mind, it was a pop out. Whatever. That's beside the point. I'm just saying he's getting on base. He's helping in that aspect of it. Marcos Gonzalez is still producing as what he needs. Gio Diaz, I think, with the lineup move has really helped. He's bumped up to a 284 average. You're starting to see, this is the day when, your key contributors aren't necessarily always working. Rincon doesn't get the benefit of the RBI, but he's the one that walked it off. It was an error off the Monarchs, so he doesn't get the RBI total in there. He doesn't get the 2 for 5 day game, but he was productive, and that's something that the box score or the numbers aren't necessarily going to tell you at the end of the year. But like, that's just things you have to take in accountability for this aspect. That's the kind of game that we need to see. This is the kind of the Milwaukee series, just in reverse, where you're able to walk the game off and be productive in that portion of it. That's what you want to happen, and that's what you get out of the situation is that. So going into yesterday's game, I'll just kind of give you the brief breakdown. I know I kind of went already over the pitchers. Hitting wise, Marcos Gonzalez went 1 for 4, 1 run, 1 walk. 1 RBI, 1 strikeout. Del Valle went 1 for 4 with a walk or with a run. Asabi went 0 for 4 with a walk. Rincon went 1 for 5, but did have the walk-off error hit, however you want to place that one. LG Castillo with 1 RBI, 1 hit at 4 at-bats and 2 strikeouts. Guillermo Quintana went 0 for 3 with 1 run, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. That's the big thing, is also you took now granted the walks aren't necessarily, you only had 3 walks, but you ended up walking 1 person in, so that's always a positive. Gio Diaz had a heck of a game. He went 3 for 4. He had a double in the game, and he had 1 strikeout. Flera went 1 for 3. Brennan Fields went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. Bockley came in as a pinch hitter. He went 0 for 1 with a strikeout, and then Jose Contreras came in just to play right field on that portion of it. But it's just like, that's the kind of benefits that you're getting. At the pitching staff wise, you give up 2 runs on 5 hits, and 3 walks and 6 strikeouts. Like, that's taking a good Kansas City Monarch team on, not maybe not the Kansas City Monarch team from last year, but it's still a good team. Like, you're still up in the rankings on that portion of it. When we look at the standings, what they are right now, the RailCats are a game behind the Doghounds for that 4th or that 5th place spot, but right now the Monarchs are 3rd and a game and a half behind the Sioux Falls Canaries for that West lead. So when we break down the standings right now, King County is actually 1st, and do you take that with a grain of salt because of playing against the RailCats to a certain extent? But you got to take it for what it is. They're at top at 14-8. Railroaders, who are just about to play coming up, is 13-10 and a game and a half back. Chicago Dogs are 11-10, 2.5 games back. Tied with Milwaukee at 10.5 or 11-10 at 2.5 games back. And then Lake Country is 8-14, 6 game half back. Looking at the division for the West, I'm not going to go like the full. The Canaries lead it. Red Hawks, Monarchs, Winnipeg, Lincoln, Sioux City is what you have there. So the thing going into next week, or starting tomorrow necessarily, is that you're 6 games down in Winnipeg, or not Winnipeg, Jesus Christ, down in Texas against Cleburne. Now, I'm not saying, I should kind of see what the temperature's kind of been, but I think they were on the road in Chicago, so you can't really kind of tell. It's been a little bit different. So, like, I think the weather's going to start to kind of warm up more down there, but it's not going to be like them playing it in middle of July and in August. So, like, this is a good time to kind of jump on them a little bit. When you look at the league stats as far as team total, batting wise, Cleburne is down there in the bottom as far as runs produced. I forget what it's where they averaged it out to, what the batting totals. Oh, off of average, they're batting a 236 average right now. So, like, they're towards the bottom as far as, like, averages. But, like, when you look at their runs, they're up there in fourth place at 117, tied with Fargo Moorhead. They're up there now in the hits at 175. The home runs, I think, they're first in home runs. So, like, that's going to be a big thing here. They have 35 home runs. So the big thing I think you have to take away from them is this is going to be one of those series that we're going to have to find out what kind of pitching we're really going to have. I mean, we kind of know what pitching we're going to have, but, like, this is going to test some pitchers to a certain extent. The Nate Alexander being a contact hitter or a contact pitcher, sometimes those contacts, I know he's been having the soft contact, whatever, but, like, those are going to be key situations to look out for, because he does give a lot of contact, and sometimes when you give up too much contact, the ball's going to go, and you're down in Cleburne, so, like, the ball's probably going to go. So it's going to be one of these where you might be able, if you're able to keep the ball down and in play, you have a higher chance of succeeding than playing the long ball game. But this may also help the RailCats in this aspect of it, because they do have 20 home runs on the year, and with Rincon being productive in the home run department, Marcos Gonzalez can be homer, and you have Francisco Del Valle bringing back. So, like, this could be a big confidence booster for some of these players. You're going down there, and I talked at the beginning of the year, you take that, you want to take that series and go 3-3. You go on the road down there, you take it 3-3, you should be good. But they put themselves in a hole where they really need to take it, a clean sweep, which is going to be very hard, or at least 1-5. The minimum is going to be like 4-2 is what that's like the worst case scenarios that you need to take out of that. Like, that's not the best case, but, like, that's to keep yourself into the year. Like, that's going to be a big confidence booster if you're able to take at least 4 out of 2. If we're going to go 4 out of 2, that's going to bring you to 11-16, which is a little bit more helpful. That's going to bump them down to 15-14. So it's like a little bit better to a certain extent. If you're able to win all 6 of those, that's going to put you at 500. It's going to put you at 15-15, if my math is correct. No, it's going to put you, no, my bad. It's going to put you at 13. You have to add an 8 to that. You have to have another win streak. My math is terrible. But you're going to be 2 games under 500, which is going to be a lot better than you were previously. Like, that's going to put yourself in a better situation. If you go 3-3, okay, that's not too terrible, but you need a win positive out of this situation. That's what we really need in the grand scheme of things. This is one of those that I hope there's a confidence builder out of it. I really hope that the team rallies around themselves and find themselves to get going in this situation, because this is going to be a big test, and it's going to be one of these 6 games always against Cleburne are always a big testament to how the season might potentially go. Because if you're not successful in this 6-game stretch, being in your division really, really hurts. This would be a completely different story if it was outside of your division, but this is in your division. This is huge. This is not something to kind of play with a little bit. You have to go down both away and at home and really figure out how to take it to them. And it's one of those that most people say maybe this is a down year for the American Association as far as talent, or there's not really a big gap between, you know, the top 4 teams in the East are all within a 2.5 game, a half game, or a game within each other. The West, you kind of have a little bit more separation with that, but it's just one of those situations where you kind of have to go with it as for what it is. But going into, you know, just talking about Anders Diaz here, being named the American Association Player of the Week, Point Streak Player of the Week, that kind of stuff. You know, he's being 22 years old. He has really good potential with him. You know, his ERA is down to 2.74. He is very he has stuff, and he pitches fast, and I think that's something that you need in that one. And then just reading through the email that Andrew Miles sent out, the last pitcher to receive this award was Julio Vivas in August last year, so that's a positive to kind of see aspect of that. So I hope to see more positive things from that situation. This is just going to be one of those. This series is going to be very interesting. I'm not sure how I'm going to play this series out. Is if I'm going to make it and it might be, since it's away, I might be able to do it, just depending, because now the game started like 7:05, 7:06, so like that kind of pushes it back 45 minutes to a half hour. Or then I'm, you know, not 45, 15 to 30 minutes normal that I'm used to on that aspect of it. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do those, like a post game, just run it through really quick, because I know I'm doing the RailCats Quick Minute, so it's just gonna be depending. I'm not sure if anyone has an idea what would be necessarily better to do on that aspect of it. Let me know, but I'm not sure how I'm gonna break that one down quite yet. Like I said, I may just make it like a 5-10 minute post game recap. I just don't know. Sometimes it takes me a while to do the quick minute, just because I have to keep recording over and over if I screw something up. As far as like the podcast, like if I screw something up, I can kind of go back and be like, oh well, I screwed that up, and I can revert that one out. But I think that's all that I'm gonna have for today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this, and go Cats.
Sound the horn! The RailCats have walked off the Monarchs for a series victory!